What's up guys, Causeway Giant here and welcome back to another Star Wars Battlefront video. Today we're playing, just kidding, I got you good. Nah, I'm not even gonna pretend I did this time. Well, unless you're a Trekkie. Nope, no Battlefront today because finally, I'm actually doing part 2 to that theory that I did literally a long time ago, but in my room. So if you haven't seen part 1 to this super mega massive jumbo theory of awesomeness, then click up here to watch it. Basically the gist of it is that Jar Jar is actually secretly the mastermind behind the fall of the Jedi and the rebirth of the Sith. Oh wait, wrong theory. Now basically the Star Wars movies happened in our galaxy over 4,000 years ago, and inspired events like the construction of the pyramids and Stonehenge, along with the true story of Luke Skywalker and co being documented and interpreted into a movie saga by George Lucas. But there was one detail about that theory that didn't make sense. Well, apart from the fact that apparently Kylo Ren pretty much sparked civilization and built the pyramids. If this theory is true, then how do Han Solo and Indiana Jonesy boy. If this theory is true, then how do Han Solo and Indiana Jones, two separate people existing in the same universe with a 4,000 year time span between them, look exactly the same? Like, I get genetics that maybe Indy is a descendant of Han's, but even still, these guys come from a time span of 4,000 years between each other. It's so ultra unlikely that the two would look nearly the exact same. So why is it then? Well, don't worry, because today we will finally uncover the answer so we can forget about this theory, go home and play with our Star Wars stuff. So surprisingly, there is actually a theory about this already, which says that Indiana Jones isn't actually a real person and is instead a character dreamed up by Han Solo whilst he was frozen in carbonite. Ah yes, the old "it's not real, he's in a coma" explanation seems to be the go-to thing nowadays. It's like the equivalent of reading a book. Reading a book, what am I talking about? And getting to the end of it and it just saying, and then they woke up and it was all a dream. Screw you. But in all seriousness, this theory does actually make some pretty convincing points, many of which will make sense for our theory. For example, the characters of Han Solo and Indiana Jones are very similar. Both use that classic witty sarcasm, and they are both definitely womanizers. Like, Han is constantly trying to seduce Leia, a royal princess. And Indy's even worse. He has a new woman in every movie he's in. He should be called Indiana Bones. Another point is that from a movie standpoint, The Empire Strikes Back, when Han Solo was frozen in carbonite, was released in 1980, and 1 year later, Raiders of the Lost Ark was released in 1981. How is this significant? Well, this means that the two films came out in chronological order of how the stories of the films would have panned out if they were one and the same. The theory also answers the question of, if Han dreamed up Indy, then how did he dream up the Nazis? By saying that Han's subconscious mind took inspiration from the Galactic Empire when creating the Nazis. After all, George Lucas did initially base the Galactic Empire off the Nazis, such as designing some of their blasters to look like weapons from World War II, and literally naming the foot soldiers after the SS Stormtroopers. Though as much as Lucas took inspiration from the Nazis, J.J. Abrams took it to the extreme by making the First Order pretty much just a bunch of space Nazis. I mean, just look at this scene from The Force Awakens.
This fierce machine which you have built, upon which we stand, will bring an end to the Senate, to their cherished fleet. All remaining systems will bow to the First Order, and will remember this as the last day of the Republic!
I wouldn't be surprised if General Hux has grown a perfectly square moustache by the time Episode 8 rolls about. It also says that the Empire weren't the only ones who leaked through Han's subconscious mind into his Indiana Jones adventure. I'm sorry, that really was terrible. One such other thing being Porkins, an X-Wing pilot who gets blown up during the Battle of Yavin in A New Hope. Look, Mr. Lucas, I get that he's slightly on the chubby side, but did you really have to call him Porkins? That's just mean, dude. Anyway, apparently Han was mourning the loss of Porkins after he met his tragic end during the Death Star assault, and thus saw him frequently during Raiders of the Lost Ark. The theory also says that Han, always seeing himself as the best there is, dreamed himself up to be an intelligent college professor, with a room full of female students madly in love with him. Seriously though, this scene is pretty weird. Like, this girl is clearly obsessed with him and he doesn't even care. Isn't that, like, kind of illegal? Ah, who cares? The Indiana Jones movies have never been the most fact-accurate films. However, this theory does have several flaws that don't intertwingle with the events of our overall theory about Star Wars and other franchises being real events taking place in our universe. Is intertwingled a word? It better be, it's awesome sounding. For example, the point about Empire and Raiders taking place consecutively, implying that they happen in chronological order, doesn't really make any sense when you consider the fact that Return of the Jedi, presumably the end of Han's Indiana Jones dream after waking up in Jabba's palace, was released on the 2nd of June 1983, and the next film in the Indiana Jones saga, The Temple Temple of Doom was released on the 23rd of May 1984. And that's not even the last one. The so-called last one of the Indiana Jones movie franchise, apparently dreamed up by Han Solo, hasn't even been released yet, as it's coming out in 2019. So saying that the Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies are released in chronological order to a larger story doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Also, due to our theory specifying that Star Wars happened in the past, it doesn't really make sense for our theory that Han dreamed up the Nazis by taking inspiration from the Empire, as the Nazis are obviously not a fictional thing, as they would be if he had dreamed them up, because you know, dreams aren't real, people. And come to think of it, most of the stuff in the Indiana Jones dream is historically accurate, so unless Han is able to foresee thousands and thousands of years into the future, it doesn't make sense at all for our theory that he was able to conjure up historical figures and events that would actually happen later on in the timeline. As remember, this theory says that Star Wars is a real historical story that happened in the past, and the whole thing about poor kids is just kind of silly. Like, Han dislikes most people, even those who were with him a lot, like C-3PO, so I find it pretty hard to believe that he would develop an emotional attachment with this random dude that is so powerful that it causes him to envision him in his dreams. So this theory, whilst good, is actually completely useless for our theory. So basically I just spent the last however many minutes explaining stuff that isn't even relevant. Troll! Okay, fine, enough trolling. The actual reason why Han Solo and Indiana Jones look like the exact same person is because they are the same person. Well, that was a bit of an anticlimax. Okay, I'll be more specific. Han Solo and Indiana Jones are actually the 13th and final incarnation of everyone's favorite Time Lord, the Doctor. Wait, stop typing hateful comments in angry confusion for a second and hear me out. Okay, so they're the Doctor. Well, more specifically, the 13th regeneration of the Doctor. And for those of you who haven't watched Doctor Who, you clearly aren't British. Basically, the Doctor is the sole survivor of an alien species called the Time Lords, an ancient people who had two hearts and the ability to regenerate their entire body into a new form when they're close to death, allowing them to potentially live for thousands of years. There is, however, a limit to this ability, as a Time Lord is only able to regenerate 12 times, with their 13th body being their last, meaning that when they die in their final form they are gone for good. As of now, the Doctor is in his 12th regeneration, hence his name, the 12th Doctor. And despite the fact that these regenerations are all the Doctor, they are all very different not only in looks, but in personality as well. For example, the 10th and 11th Doctors are both very lively, spontaneous, and are very emotional and deeply care for humanity and tried to save as many lives as possible. In contrast to this, the current 12th Doctor is the polar opposite. Very serious, much older, and is easily annoyed and almost seems to have a complete disregard for humanity. Like when his best friend Clara Oswald's boyfriend Danny Pink dies after being hit by a car, he doesn't show any sympathy for her and doesn't even seem to care. And people wonder why Peter Capaldi isn't anyone's favourite Doctor. However, the different versions of the Doctors do have some similarities with each other. For example, as I said earlier, the 10th and 11th Doctors are almost identical in personality, though a well-known trait shared by all the Doctors is that they are womanizers. For those of you who don't know, the Doctor always travels with a companion, so he is not alone, and nearly every single one of these companions have been women, with a large amount of these women being involved with the Doctor on a more intimate level. Like take the 10th Doctor for instance. During his time he had several female companions: Rose Tyler, Martha Jones, Donna Noble, Astrid Peth, Lady Christina de Souza, and Adelaide Brooke. As well as this, he also married Queen Elizabeth I at one point, so I think it's safe to say that he was one for the ladies. This would explain Han and Indy's mad interest in women throughout their lives as well, mirroring this trait shared by all the Doctors. Anyway, what I'm saying is, despite the fact that they are all a Doctor, the regenerations are most definitely not the same people. Therefore, it's not much of a stretch to believe that when the 12th Doctor meets his end and regenerates into the 13th Doctor, he is a completely different person. Now a very witty, sarcastic, and egotistic individual known to the galaxy as Han Solo. Now I know what you're thinking, fam, if Han Solo is the Doctor, then how come he isn't called the Doctor? I've got like 50 Han Solo figures and not one of them is called the Doctor. Well, I hear you, fellow Star Wars nerd, and I appreciate your immense collection of Han Solo figures. See, the Doctor is notorious throughout the universe. Over the years, he has foiled the plans of some of the most evil and dangerous creatures in existence, like the Cybermen, Sontarans, and most famous of all, the Daleks. Yes, the Daleks, not the Daleks. There is not a single R anywhere in that word. Like, come on guys, how is it that people can say stuff like
Clan by the push gwingus go get a quindrobble, clan to Cilio go go go,
but not a simple 5-letter word? It's moments like these when I wonder how we haven't been exterminated by the Daleks. Oh, I mean the Daleks. Oh no, I'm one of them! So in order to help disguise himself, the Doctor came up with various pretend names that he uses as a sort of alter ego, such as Johann Schmidt, Theta Sigma, and most famous of all, John Smith. So what I think could have potentially actually happened is that the 12th Doctor could have been in a similar situation to how the 11th Doctor died, with many of his arch enemies like the Daleks, Cybermen and other races teaming up to destroy the Doctor once and for all. Being the Doctor, he probably did some doctorish things, like saying some mad science mumbo-jumbo that makes no sense and is clearly just Stephen Moffat's way of pretending that he isn't just making the story up as he goes along. Then maybe flash his sonic screwdriver a little bit and somehow destroy one of the Dalek ships whilst I Am the Doctor is playing in the background. However, he would eventually be shot by a Dalek's laser, though had managed to flee the scene using the power of Stephen Moffat's magic writing. After all, it's clear that the 12th Doctor wouldn't die instantly, as in the season 4 finale titled Journey's End, the 10th Doctor survives for a while longer after he is shot by Dalek's laser. When he was sure he was alone and not followed, he regenerated into the 13th Doctor, changing from a grumpy Scotsman to the scoundrel we all know and love. Due to the regeneration, his physical features had completely changed, and thus would be unrecognisable to the Daleks and the rest of the evil races that were pursuing him. He took this opportunity to go into hiding, as he knew no one would be able to believe that he was the Doctor without concrete proof, like an X-ray or a blood sample, or just seeing signs saying that he is the new Doctor when visiting the Doctor Who exhibition in Cardiff, which I have been to. In order to preserve his identity further, he thought it would be a good idea to change his alias from the Doctor to another name, as due to the fact that this was his 13th and final reincarnation, he would die forever if he were to be killed again. Instead of using the infamous John Smith alter ego, he realised that this could still be traced back to him, so in the interest of utmost caution, he created a new name for himself, Han Solo. Well, there's what I think his backstory would have been like as he changed from the 12th to the 13th Doctor. Now that he's in Star Wars, I could do a Star Wars Legacy on the Doctor. Maybe not. Well, anyway, back to the theory. Following his regeneration, the Doctor, now known as Han Solo, would attempt to preserve his identity further by destroying his sonic screwdriver, or his sonic sunglasses, or whatever he was using. I mean, seriously, I thought sonic lipstick was a bit of a stretch, but sonic sunglasses? It's like Stephen Moffat was like, hey, you over there, bring me something from Lost Property. A pair of sunglasses. Yep, that'll do for our new sonic thing. Now go put the rest of that stuff back, ready for the season 1,982,743 April Fool's special episode. Don't worry, I'll explain how these sunglasses are somehow one of the most powerful devices in the universe, using some random space mumbo-jumbo. Like, come on guys, sonic sunglasses? Really? What's next, a sonic spoon to help you save the universe while you're eating your Wheaties bit? Oh, okay. A problem he would then face was the TARDIS, the instantly recognisable transport of the Doctor. I mean, there aren't really a whole lot of other flying 1960s style phone boxes that have the capacity to travel through space and time and be bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Yes, I said the line. See, there used to be loads of TARDISes that were used by the Time Lords to transport themselves to any point in time or space. They had a built-in chameleon circuit, a device that allowed the craft to blend into its surroundings, disguising itself in whatever way it can. However, the Doctor's TARDIS has a broken chameleon circuit, and this is why it's always been stuck in the form of a phone box. The 13th Doctor would have understood that he would have had to got this fixed once and for all to complete his shift into a new identity. Selling all of the artifacts and treasures that he had collected over his life, he would scour the universe for someone to fix it. After years of searching, he would eventually find somebody on Carillia, and the TARDIS's chameleon circuit was once again operational after almost 10,000 years. It instantly morphed into a large spaceship resembling a Carillion YT-1300 light freighter, as the workshop that the chameleon circuit had been fixed in had a dozen or so of them in it. It is Carillia after all. The being that fixed it for him had told the 13th Doctor that they were often used for transport of goods, as they had large amounts of space and its frontal prongs allowed it to push containers. He considered this and decided that he could disguise his identity further by using the newly transformed TARDIS to become a smuggler in that particular galaxy. After departing the planet, he made Carillia the birthplace for Han Solo, as it was also the birthplace of his new TARDIS design and his new career as a smuggler. He would further alter the TARDIS and remove its ability to increase the size of the inside, and instead designed it to resemble the interior of a normal Carillion YT-1300 light freighter, and also stopped using its ability to travel through time. Despite this, he did still keep its incredible speed capacity, allowing it to earn various achievements such as being the only craft to do the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs. Oh sorry, I mean 12. He grew to love the TARDIS's new unspecial look, and affectionately named it the Millennium Falcon. That's all well and good, but there is a problem with this, as in our theory, Han effectively makes the Millennium Falcon himself, as it changes form from a phone box to that classic instantly recognisable shape that it has in Star Wars. However, it is a well-known fact by most Star Wars nerds that Han won the Falcon off Lando Calrissian in a card game called Sabacc. However, this is not strictly true. See, although Lando and Han both say that this is how it went down, it's actually a cover-up. Han would have used a memory-altering device on Lando to make him believe that he was the previous owner of the Falcon in order to preserve his new identity. reality. Now this brings us to another problem. How did the 13th Doctor manage to get such a device? Like, there's no such thing in the Star Wars universe, the closest being a Jedi mind trick, and Han isn't a Jedi. Or is he? Nah, we'll save that for a theory for another day. I think I'm pushing it saying that Han is the final Doctor, saying that he's a Jedi too and unleashed the fury of the Star Wars fanbase upon me like a pack of piranhas. Then I consulted the Doctor Who wiki, and after about an hour of searching, yep, because that's what cool people do with their lives, spend hours looking for a fictional mind changer from a show about an alien exploring the entire universe though everybody he meets is British, I couldn't find anything that was remotely close to what we were looking for. So I was gonna pack up and go home, although I already am home, when something hit me. See if any of you Men in Black fans recognize this device.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, look right here. Okay, you know how you're on an airplane and the flight attendant asks you to turn your cell phone off? And you like, I ain't turning my cell phone off. That don't have nothing to do with no damn airplane. Well, this is what we get.
This is called a neuralizer and is used by secret agents to erase the memories of people who have witnessed events that could potentially compromise the whole secret part of the organization. The thing is, this has only been used in the Men in Black movies. So I then tried to find a link between the Men in Black movies and the Star Wars universe, and I found one. See, during a chase scene in the film, Tommy Lee Jones's character Kay mentions Carillion death rays. I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what they are, though they clearly originate from the planet Carillia, which, surprise surprise, is the planet where Han Solo is born and the TARDIS transforms into the Millennium Falcon. See, I think that whoever fixed up the TARDIS's chameleon circuit may have also given the Doctor a neuralizer to help him preserve his identity, and then used it on his friend Lando to make him and the rest of the galaxy believe that Han won it off Lando in a game of cards. Boom! So now we can add Men in Black to our crossover timeline. Oh, and I just want to quickly point out something that I missed in the first part of the theory. See, there are a few scenes in the prequel trilogy that feature some of E.T.'s species, which is more proof that they're in Star Wars, so apologies for that, and shout out to F-22 pilot, Creator Blitz, and Kerem Dizuklan? Sorry if I pronounced any of those wrong, I do Star Wars, not names. But well done! Then there's the problem about Han's backstory. Man, so many problems. Why can't it just be as simple as saying Han's the Doctor and getting on with it? Like, it's not like anyone really cares about this anyway. See, originally I was kind of stooped by the fact that Han's initial backstory was that he joined the Imperial Academy, but defected and freed Chewbacca from slavery. Because obviously, for our theory, Han is a smuggler and doesn't join the Empire at all. But luckily, J.J. Abrams came along and made pretty much everything about Star Wars not canon anymore. And instead, the story now is that he simply freed Chewbacca at one point. So what I think could have happened is that despite the fact that the Doctor is now a smuggler, he is still the Doctor, so he shares the trait of most Doctors that he cares about people. And thus, during one time when he was on a smuggling mission to Kessel, he was made aware of Wookiees, a once mighty warrior people, being enslaved by Trandoshans and forced into excruciating labor with no intervention of the Galactic Empire. He decided to take action himself, liberating the facility and freeing the Wookiees, one of which, called Chewbacca, swore a life debt to him. Han had grown lonely as he was used to having a companion, so he took Chewbacca on as a co-pilot, and the two became some of Jabba's best smugglers. Han's story in the original trilogy then plays out, with Obi-Wan and Luke offering him a massive sum of money, allowing him to pay Jabba back after he ditched some of his valuable cargo. But the two reminded him of his old ways of being a hero and saving the universe to do what's right. So he decides to join the Rebel Alliance and became one of the most daring and valuable rebel leaders in the fight against the Empire. A year after the Battle of Endor, Princess Leia and him finally got together and had a child named Ben Solo, who Han wanted Luke to train so that he could become a Jedi. After the Galactic Civil War, Han understood that his new reputation had made him very famous throughout the galaxy, being a rebel general and helping to destroy the Empire, besides the fact that he owns the fastest ship in the galaxy, despite the fact that it's just a very bog standard freighter designed for transporting cargo, not racing around asteroids in under 12 parsecs. His old enemies from the past, when he went by the name of the Doctor, were still trying to track him down and avenge their fallen comrades that the Doctor had killed, and grew suspicious of the seemingly invincible Han Solo. So he disbanded himself from the Rebel Alliance and went back to his old career of smuggling. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The Daleks paid a group of pirates to arrange a smuggling mission for Han, and upon arrival, they x-rayed him, saw that he had two hearts, and knew that they had finally found the Doctor. They informed the Daleks and opened fire on him, though Han was already suspicious and had planned an escape with Chewie beforehand. The Falcon would once again take off amidst a hail of blaster fire, because that's pretty much what happens every time it takes off, though this time it would not escape so easily, as thousands and thousands of Daleks, Cybermen, Sontaran, Jadoon, and countless many more ships emerged from hyperspace and engaged the Falcon. Even Han Solo's expert piloting skills could not evade the millions of lasers being shot at the Falcon, one of which scored a direct hit to the Falcon's hyperdrive, preventing them from escaping into hyperspace. Han knew that he couldn't escape them, and even if he did manage to temporarily lose them, he knew that they would eventually find him again. So, for the first time in years, he used the TARDIS's ability to travel through space and time, and teleported away from the oncoming armada to the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk. There he explained to a confused and startled Chewbacca that he was actually called the Doctor, and that he was being pursued by some of the most dangerous races in the universe. He told him that now they knew who he was, there was no way he could escape, and that it would be safer for Chewie to remain behind so that he is protected from their onslaught. Chewie was extremely distressed about the thought of leaving Han, though after much persuasion, a crying Han explained to him that this was the only way, and Chewie stepped out of the Millennium Falcon, or as he now knew it was called, the TARDIS. Just like all the previous Doctors, Han couldn't stand goodbye, so he immediately left the planet, leaving Chewie witnessing the Falcon dissolve into thin air with a strange whirring sound. The TARDIS then materialized in Connecticut in the year 1930, over 4,000 years into the future. Han knew that he would be safe from the massive army intent on destroying him this far into the future, and began creating yet another new identity for himself. He named himself Indiana Jones and began to start a career as an archaeologist. To take further precautions, he transformed himself into a human using a fob watch, in a similar way that he did in the Series 3 episode Human Nature. This stored his Time Lord essence, making him lose all of his Time Lord attributes, mainly having 2 hearts and being able to live for far longer than a human. He also stopped using the TARDIS entirely, which had transformed into a rustic 1930s style armoire, which he stored in his house in Connecticut. Over the years, he became fascinated with archaeology, having discovered many amazing historical artifacts and developing fierce rivalries with men such as the French archaeologist René Belloc. He found a burning desire to direct his knowledge on the subject into teaching, and made a job application at Marshall College in Connecticut. Using his psychic paper, a blank piece of paper that induces whatever the Doctor wants someone to see onto it, he created a stellar qualification and was accepted into the college. The events of the films happen, and as I said in the first part of the theory, he became fascinated by the ancient relics from the Star Wars timeline that he was discovering, but not because he was curious as to their futuristic design, but because they reminded him of his past life as the smuggler Han Solo, and his long dead friends like Chewie and his lover Leia. He fell into a depression and left his relationship with a girl named Marion Ravenwood to pursue his mad obsession to collect as many relics from the past as possible in a way to honour them. He continued to do this right up to the events of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 1957, everyone's favourite Indiana Jones movie, right? Where he once again grew romantically involved with his former lover, Marion Ravenwood. She temporarily persuades him to quit his obsession, and the two are married, and he began to share his knowledge of archaeology and the stories of the many Star Wars artifacts that he collected over the years with his son Mutt. But now, the older Indiana Jones knew that this was not the life he wanted. He had deeply missed his old life as a smart talking rogue Han Solo, and decided that he needed to go back. So he explained his feelings to his family and hopped back into his now very dusty wardrobe-shaped TARDIS, and transported himself back in time to 24 ABY, 20 years after the Battle of Endor, and 20 years after his discovery by the Daleks, as he hoped that their search for him had lessened and maybe even thought that he was dead after vanishing without a trace. He returned to Chewie on Kashyyyk, who had made a simple farming life for himself to hide from the Daleks, and was delighted to see him again, though he did not show himself to any of his former friends to protect both them and himself and Chewie. He gave the TARDIS away, which had once again transformed into the Millennium Falcon, though Han had stripped it bare of any Time Lord technology, so now it was just a normal, slightly roughed up Corellian YT-1300 light freighter. The two began a career of transporting Rathars, large predatory land-dwelling octopus creatures that hunted in packs and were very dangerous, as this very minor career would help to keep them below the radar of any potential hostiles that would like to see him dead. That is, at least until the events of The Force Awakens happen 10 years later, where Han is reunited with the TARDIS and his former lover Leia, and helps the Resistance to destroy a large planet-destroying weapon known as Starkiller Base, though during this assault he is finally murdered by his son Ben Solo, who is now known as Kylo Ren, a leader of the First Order who had been seduced to the dark side by Supreme Leader Snoke. As remember, Han is the 13th and final version of the Doctor, so he was unable to regenerate into a new form to cheat death. Though let's be honest, even if he could regenerate from being impaled by a lightsaber, I'm not so sure he would be able to after tumbling down into a never-ending abyss, with the entire planet that he's on exploding. Like, geez, talk about overkill there, JJ. So that's how the Doctor finally meets his end. Funny. After a massive armada of his most hated enemies searching for him for years and years, he was eventually killed by his own flesh and blood. Well, there we are, guys. That's my theory on how Hannah and Indy are the same guy. Jeez, I know it took a while, guys. Sorry about that, but I really enjoyed doing this two-parter. And you know the old saying, good things come to those who wait. Well, I mean, hopefully it's good. It would kind of suck waiting ages for this, and then this theory being more of a letdown than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Peter Capaldi's Doctor combined. But hey, if I say it's good, It's good. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks again for the continuing support on the theories. You guys are the best. And if any of you have any ideas for theories you want me to do, let me know. I'd love to start working with you awesome peeps, and let me know what you thought of this one. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, unless it's wrong. And as always, remember to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you later, fellow handy Anahuvians. I would say bye, but I can't stand goodbye, so I'm just gonna end it here. Wait, hang on. If Porkins was in A New Hope and in Raiders of the Lost Ark just like Ham was, that must mean that he's a Time Lord too. There is another.